I remember the exact moment everything started, because it has been replaying in my head every night since. I still don't know how much danger I was really in that day, or if the real danger was that I wanted it to happen. Mom had asked me to stay home because someone from her office was supposed to drop off documents. I didn't expect anyone special. Definitely not the woman who stepped across our threshold like she already knew every corner of the house. Monica, my mom's colleague, mid-40s, dark hair tied back, blazer that looked too powerful for a casual visit, and a subtle perfume that cut through the quiet air. She smiled at me like she was greeting an equal. Not a college guy in sweatpants, fresh from the gym, still holding a cold water bottle. I tried to say something normal, but her eyes moved over me, slow and curious, before locking onto mine with a focus that made my chest tighten. "So, you're home alone?" Her voice was soft but charged, like a quiet warning. She walked farther inside without waiting for an answer, set the folder on the table, glanced around, then back at me. "Your mom always said you were a kid. I'm not seeing that now." I tried to laugh, to act casual, but the space between us kept shrinking. Every time she took a tiny step forward, her perfume felt closer, heavier. She asked about school, about what I wanted to do after graduation, about dating, things she didn't need to know for work. Not unless she had some other reason for being here. I offered her water, thinking distance might cool the tension. But instead, she followed me into the kitchen, leaned on the counter, and watched my hands. Felt like I was being tested. And I was failing because every look she gave hit too directly, like she wanted proof I was feeling what she was pushing. "This could have waited," she said eventually, glancing at the folder. "Your mom doesn't need it tonight." "But I thought," she smiled. "Why wait?" Then she stepped closer, so close her shoulder almost brushed mine, and lowered her voice. "If your mom asks, you saw nothing. You say nothing. It's just between us. All right?" The rule was clear, and it hit like an electric line between us. Silence. Secrecy. Something no son should keep from his mother. But something I suddenly, desperately wanted to protect. Right then, my phone lit up. "Mom." Calling. Monica held a finger to her lips, smiling like she already knew what I'd do. I let it ring. My heartbeat was louder than the tone. I didn't answer. I didn't move. She turned slowly, walked back to the living room. Not toward the door, but toward the shelves and furniture like she was exploring. At one point, she paused at a photo of me and Mom. Me at 13, a silly haircut and braces, standing next to my mother's arm at the beach. Monica picked it up, examined it for a moment, then looked back at me. "You have her eyes," she said softly. "But your look, it's different now, deeper, and harder to ignore." Thunder rolled in the distance. The storm hadn't fully left. It was still hanging somewhere out there, like it was waiting. She walked toward the door finally, slow and composed. I followed, still trying to understand what was happening, or why her voice kept ringing in my ears long after she'd stopped speaking. Her hand wrapped around the doorknob, but she didn't open it. Instead, she turned back over her shoulder. Her eyes locked on mine, and then she said, "I know what you were thinking just now. You want to say it, don't you?" I froze. She smiled, slow and private, and whispered, "Say it, out loud." A car passed outside, headlights slicing briefly through the hallway. Then she opened the door. The rain had started again, light, steady. She stepped into it without an umbrella, paused only to glance back once more. "I'll be back," she said. "And next time, no excuses." She disappeared into the soft downpour. My phone buzzed again. A message from Mom. "Work emergency. I'll be home late. Want me to bring food?" I should have felt relieved. Instead, all I could think about was Monica's voice, her eyes, and the unfinished sentence I had swallowed. I closed the door and leaned against it, trying to breathe normally, but the house still smelled like her perfume. My skin still felt the warmth of her stare. I looked around the hallway at the spot where she'd stood, at the photo she had touched, at the faint mark her glass left on the counter. And I already knew the truth. If she came back, I wouldn't stop her. The next day felt longer than it should have. Everything moved in slow motion. I couldn't focus on anything for more than a few minutes. Not on schoolwork, not on messages, not even on the TV humming in the background. My mind kept drifting to the hallway, the door, the perfume she left in the air. It was almost evening when it happened. I was in my room, pacing, debating whether to delete the thoughts before they turned into something I couldn't contain. That's when my phone lit up. Instagram notification. Monica had followed me. I hesitated. Every part of me screamed to ignore it. But I didn't. I tapped accept. A few seconds later, a message popped up. Your mom's working late again tonight, isn't she? My stomach dropped. She knew. She had checked. Or guessed. I typed, yeah, she's still at the office. Then another message came in. Mind if I stop by again? Just for a minute. I didn't even reply. 12 minutes later, the doorbell rang. She stood there in jeans and a black top that hugged her just enough to feel intentional. In her hands, a bottle of red wine. This is for your mom, she said, smiling. You'll give it to her later, won't you? I nodded, stepping aside to let her in. She walked through the hall like she'd been here 100 times before. No hesitation, no rush, just calm, practiced movements, the kind that made you forget what the rules ever were. In the kitchen, I opened the cupboard and took out 2 glasses without even thinking. She raised an eyebrow. Confident, aren't we? You brought 2 last time, I said. She smiled but didn't answer. We sat on opposite ends of the couch in the living room, wine glasses in hand. The house was still. Outside, the clouds thickened again, the sky bruising toward purple. This place is quieter than I remember, she said. Used to be filled with yelling when you were little. I laughed nervously. You came here back then? A few times. Your mom and we were closer back then, before things changed. She took a sip of wine, eyes flicking to mine over the rim. You don't remember? I shook my head. Not really. Shame, she said, leaning back. I remember you. I swallowed hard. Minutes passed, filled with the sound of breathing, clinking glasses, and tension thick enough to slice through. Then she noticed the necklace. She reached out gently and touched the silver pendant around my neck. A small, simple disc my mom had given me when I graduated. She still wears the same one, Monica murmured. Back in the day, everyone had one. Same office, same team, same silly traditions. She tilted her head. She gave you hers? No, this one's mine. She looked at it for a beat longer, then let go. But her touch left a strange chill behind. A mark of something she wasn't supposed to touch. So, she said, you still haven't told me. Told you what? What you were thinking the other night. Don't pretend you forgot. I looked away, feeling my skin heat. She set her glass down. Want to try again? Her hand found mine, slow, deliberate. She didn't hold it fully, just fingertips grazing, waiting. I looked at her, fully. She looked back. I started. A sharp noise interrupted everything. Footsteps. Outside. Clothes. Crunching gravel. We both froze. She pulled her hand back fast. Stood. Moved toward the window without making a sound. Parted the curtain an inch with just her fingertip. A man was walking his dog. Middle-aged. Distracted. Not looking at the house but walking slowly. She let the curtain fall and looked back at me. Do you ever get nervous? She asked softly. Now I do. She didn't laugh, didn't smile. Just stared. Then walked to the kitchen and refilled her glass. I stayed on the couch, trying to steady my heartbeat. She walked back. Didn't sit this time. Just stood by the wall, watching me. Then she said it. Calm. Sharp. like she already knew what would happen next. Tomorrow, my place, 7 o'clock. I didn't respond. Couldn't. She stepped toward the door. Stopped. Turned. And this time, she added, no one walking by. No excuses. She left her lipstick-stained glass on the coffee table. Another thing she wasn't supposed to leave behind, and walked out the door without looking back. I stood there for a while, staring at the wine glass, the mark her lips left behind, and the clock ticking toward something I couldn't define. The necklace felt heavier, and the house quieter. The next day moved like a countdown. Every hour pulled me closer to something I didn't know how to define. I skipped dinner, left my phone charging, untouched on my nightstand. Mom texted me that she'd be late again. Some last-minute report. I didn't even respond. At 6:52, I was standing at the front door, heart pounding in my throat, trying to decide if I was about to do something brave or just stupid. The sky was already dark by the time I reached Monica's building. A quiet street. No streetlights near her entrance. I rang the buzzer, and the door unlocked without a word. I walked up the stairs slowly, listening to every creak under my shoes. Her apartment door opened before I knocked. She was barefoot, wearing a dark green sweater and black leggings. Hair loose this time. No perfume I could detect, just a soft scent of vanilla and something warmer. Right on time, she said. I like that. Inside, the lighting was low. A single lamp glowed beside the couch. Jazz played from a speaker, soft, low, like it didn't want to draw attention. The whole place felt too quiet, too personal. She poured us wine without asking. Same kind. You didn't bring the necklace, she noted. I reached under my shirt, pulled it out. Always on. She stepped closer. Her eyes shifted not to the necklace, but to me. I like that too. We sat on the couch, shoulders almost touching, speaking quietly. First about nothing. She asked what classes I was taking. I lied. She asked if I was seeing anyone. I didn't answer. The silence between answers filled in more than any words. Then her phone rang. We both flinched. The name lit up on the screen for only a second. Derek, I read. She turned it face down. My husband, she said casually. Technically. My stomach twisted. You're married. She sipped her wine, then tilted her head. We've been separated for months. He still checks in like it matters. Then she leaned in. Her hand touched my knee. Not by accident. You still haven't told me, she whispered. Told you what? What you were thinking. That first day. When I stood in your doorway. I hesitated. Looked at her hand, then her face. I thought, if I said it, it'd all come undone. She smiled, slow and quiet. Maybe that's the point. Her fingers slid down from my knee to my wrist. My hand moved toward hers. We were inches from something irreversible. I could feel her breath. My chest was tight. My lips parted. I was ready. Then it happened. The sound of a door opening, the wrong door. Monica shot up, her wine spilling slightly as she grabbed the glass. What was that? I whispered. She darted to the hallway, barefoot on tile. I followed behind, heart hammering. She looked through the peephole. Neighbor, she said finally. 2 floors down. Doors echo here. My lungs emptied all at once. We stood there in the hallway, both quiet, both still caught in the adrenaline that didn't know it was false. Then she turned to me, and something cracked. Without words, she leaned in and kissed me. Not long, not deep, just once, then pulled away, breathing hard. I shouldn't have, she whispered. I know. We stood in the echo of what just happened, unsure which version of ourselves we had just left behind. She didn't ask me to stay. I didn't ask to leave. I just nodded once and walked out. The cold air outside hit like guilt. By the time I got home, Mom's car was already in the driveway. The house smelled like food. Her laptop was open at the kitchen table, her voice on a video call with her boss. She waved at me with a smile. I waved back, numb. I went straight to my room, pulled off my hoodie, and dropped onto the bed. My hands were still trembling. I turned on my phone. Nothing from Monica. I stared at the ceiling for a long time, trying to slow my thoughts. Eventually, I reached for the nightstand drawer for no reason, just something to ground me. That's when I saw it. A folded piece of paper. I hadn't left it there. My name was written on the front, in the same looping handwriting I'd seen on the documents she brought for Mom. I opened it. Just one line. Friday, 8 p.m. No talking. Just decide. I stared at the words, the curve of her letters, the precision of her message. It wasn't a question. It was a door. And now it was up to me whether I'd walk through it. Friday felt like something I wasn't ready for. Every second of the day dragged like it was testing my patience. I skipped a team meeting with my study group. Canceled dinner with Emma, a girl I'd promised to see again. I told her something vague about a family emergency. I didn't even feel guilty. By the time it was 7:40 p.m., my phone was buzzing nonstop. Emma messaged twice. Mom texted, "You okay? Haven't heard from you since morning." I held down the power button and shut the phone off completely. That was my first real lie. I left the house in silence, hoodie up, rain just starting to fall. Every step toward Monica's building felt heavier than the last. At 8:01, I knocked once. The door opened like she had been standing behind it the whole time. She didn't say a word, just stepped aside, let me in, and closed the door behind me. No music this time, no wine, just us and the quiet. She looked different. No makeup, hair pulled back, wearing an oversized button-down and nothing else I could see beneath. "You came," she said. "I almost didn't." "I know," she replied. "But you did." We stood there for a moment, just breathing, neither of us moving. Then she walked into the kitchen, sat on a stool, and nodded for me to do the same. "I lied to you," she said suddenly. "I said we'd been separated for months." I stayed still, pulse rising. "We haven't," she continued. "He just works late, travels a lot, sleeps on the couch when he's here. I haven't touched him in half a year. Haven't even wanted to." She reached for a glass of water, took a sip, then added, "I didn't plan this. I didn't plan you." I swallowed hard. "Then why?" She looked up at me. "Because you looked at me like you saw something I forgot I had." That sentence dropped into the silence like a stone in water. "I'm not proud of anything," she said, "but I'm tired of pretending that I don't feel anything either." She stood, walked slowly to me, and placed her hand over my chest. "You make me feel something I haven't in years, and that should scare me, but it doesn't." Her eyes were damp, but she didn't blink them away. She just stood there, holding my stare like she had that very first time. That's when the buzz started. A loud vibration. Her phone, left on the hallway table. The screen lit up with a name. Derek, work. We both froze. She didn't move to answer it. The screen went dark, then buzzed again. Another call. "He's supposed to be out of town," she whispered. "He wasn't supposed to." She didn't finish. Instead, she rushed to the door, locked it from the inside, then pulled the curtain over the peephole. "Did you see anyone when you came in?" she asked, suddenly sharper. "No, I don't think." "Are you sure?" I walked, hoodie up. No one was out. Her hands were shaking now. Sometimes he gets paranoid. Drives by, just to see. Silence filled the room again, but it wasn't soft anymore. It was pressing. "I should go," I said quietly. "No," she said fast. "Just wait. 5 more minutes." We stood in that holding pattern. Not lovers, not strangers, not anything we had a name for, waiting for something we couldn't predict. Eventually, the phone stopped, and when it did, we didn't speak. She just walked to me again, slower this time, and leaned her head into my shoulder. I wasn't lying about being lonely, she said. I forgot what it's like to have someone look at you without judgment, without expectations. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I let her stay there, pressed close to me, both of us listening to the tick of the clock and the dull hum of her refrigerator. Then she whispered something I didn't expect. I used to come over to your house just to see your mom laugh. She was the only one who noticed when I was falling apart. She pulled away slowly. Her hands dropped to her sides. I'm not trying to steal anything from her. I just wanted something of my own. For once. We stood in that moment, neither of us speaking, but everything was louder than words. Finally, I said, "This can't last." She nodded. "I know, but it's not over yet." Her eyes searched mine, and for once, she didn't smile. She just reached behind her, pulled open a drawer, and handed me something small. A key. "I'm out of town next weekend, but the weekend after, the place is yours, if you want it." I looked down at the key, then at her. "I'll decide." She stepped close, just enough for her breath to reach my skin. "Decide fast," she whispered, "because the next time, I won't ask." It didn't feel like a choice, felt like falling. The day of the next meeting came and went, and I didn't go. I didn't text, didn't knock on her door, didn't touch the key in my drawer. Not because I didn't want to, because I wanted to too much. The space between us had become too narrow. Every second I wasn't with her, I felt the air thinner. But every second I was, the walls around me creaked louder. And I knew eventually something would give. So I stayed away, at least for a while. But the silence wasn't clean. It itched under my skin. A waiting wound. I caught myself scrolling through old photos on my phone, looking for ones she was never in, touching the pendant on my chest like it could explain something I didn't have words for. I told myself I was strong for resisting. But when her name appeared on my screen again, after 8 days of nothing, I didn't hesitate. No questions. 1 hour. "You know where the key is." That was all she wrote. No hi. No please. Just hunger disguised as instruction. I told Mom I was going to a bookstore, turned off my phone, slipped the key into my pocket like it had always been there. Her apartment was dim when I entered, curtains drawn, candlelight flickering faintly in the kitchen. Something soft playing in another room, a piano melody I didn't recognize. She didn't say anything when I stepped inside. She didn't need to. She stood in the hallway, barefoot again, wearing the same oversized shirt as before, or maybe another one just like it. And when I walked toward her, she didn't move. We kissed like it had already happened 100 times. Slow, deep, unapologetic. There were no fireworks, no sudden crashing music, just skin, breath, mouths finding mouths, two people making a decision together in silence. And for a few minutes, the world outside didn't matter. When we finally separated, still close, she looked at me with something different in her eyes. Not guilt, not possession, not even lust, just recognition. "You came back," she whispered. "I never really left," I said. That was the only truth I had to give her. We didn't talk about what it meant, didn't draw maps for the future. There were no promises, no explanations, just the knowledge that this moment existed and that we chose to step back into it, even if it cost something later, even if it already had. 1 week later, I stood alone in my room. The necklace was still around my neck, but now it felt different, heavier, not because it had changed, but because what it meant had. It wasn't just mine anymore. There was a new ritual now. Every Friday at 7:59, I took the key out of my drawer and looked at it. Sometimes I used it, sometimes I didn't, but I always touched it. It had become a question I never asked out loud, and never needed to. Mom still didn't know. No one did. But that was the deal. The silence was part of it. The cost and the cover. And Monica? She never pushed for more. She never asked, "What are we?" or how long can this last? She just waited exactly 1 hour. Every time. No texts, no calls, no goodbyes. Only that same candlelight, that same look, that same key. I don't know how long it will go on. But for now, we both keep showing up. And every time I close her door behind me, it sounds the same. Soft, slow, like a secret locking itself back into place.